Welcome to this series of interviews all about MKU. My name is Kamila Falkowska and I'm the Business-to-Business Manager at MKU. I'm joined here today by Rebecca Jarrett, who's Head of HR, Operations and Resourcing at Cranfield University, but she's also involved in MKU HR side of things. Hi Rebecca, welcome. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so much, Camilla. It's really exciting to be here today.
Great. Just to start off, it would be great if you could tell us a little bit more about yourself and your background.
Yes, sure. So I've been working at Cranfield since 2016. I joined originally as a senior business partner working with the School of Management. And prior to that, I was working in a couple of different startup companies. So I currently hold a generalist HR role, which means I look after the end-to-end employee sort of life cycle from attraction and recruitment all the way through to employee well-being and beyond. And the thing that's really great about MKU is I feel that it's enabling me to bring my startup experience and complement that by my higher education experience as well.
Marvellous, that's great. So in terms of the recruitment side of things, I know you mentioned it, one of the things that you are looking after. Would you be able to tell me, because the MKU is very much about being different, about being innovative, about really standing out. Would you be able to tell me what is the recruitment side of things look like for MKU?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Thank you, Camilla. And I really feel like it starts at the outset by us thinking creatively about where we might find the skills and capabilities that we're looking for, and not be afraid to move outside the HE sector for that. So, you know, really not being constrained by sector-specific experience, but think more broadly. And then it's about how we think about attracting people to come and join MKU. And what our offering is and how we get that out to market and really ensure that people can engage with us and understand what the opportunities are here.
Yeah, no, that's great. Can you tell me about any kind of specific examples of that type of activity?
Yeah, so we have found that for example, when we recruited our academic course leads, that we felt that we could go out and recruit for multiple roles simultaneously. And that we tried to be very inclusive in the language that we used in our advertising material, for example, to encourage people with different backgrounds to apply. We carried out a large-scale attraction campaign, and then we initiated some perhaps more interesting ideas for our selection practices that we brought in from industry, and we complemented them by some of the good practices that do occur in HE around higher education, that is, around selection practices.
Yeah, no, that sounds absolutely brilliant. Can you talk to me a little bit more about what types of skills are needed currently kind of in the MKU realm and in general in the industry? What are you kind of looking at in terms of the skills that are needed? What is your main focus when interviewing and when really selecting those candidates, as you said, because it's really all about making sure that the right people are coming into a project like this, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think attracting the right skills is a challenge that faces all organisations, no matter what your sector or industry. I think it's about thinking creatively, moving beyond perhaps traditional measures of success. We know that it's a very candidate-driven market at the moment, particularly as we're experiencing a shift, post-COVID. So I think for all organisations, we do need to think creatively about where we find the skills and capabilities, and not just be constrained by sector-specific experience, as I've mentioned before.
And could you tell me a little bit more about the actual challenges that you have come across in terms of, the recruitment? I know there's plenty of those, and you mentioned some already, but, were there any particular challenges on the MKU side of things in terms of, the skills that you were looking for, the candidates you were looking for, and actually, what was the biggest challenge in recruitment?
Yeah, there are a number of really key challenges for us all, I think, at the moment, Camilla. And the one that springs to mind immediately is for us as organisations is about creating an inclusive environment to enable us to attract a diverse range of people to join us. And one of the ways we've approached that at MKU is to adopt what we call our flexible resourcing model. So we recognise that not everybody is interested in a permanent, 9-to-5 job. There are people out there with the skills and capabilities that would benefit MKU, that perhaps have caring responsibilities or side hustles or their own businesses, and we should be open to being able to welcome those different profiles of people to MKU. And so for me, it's about ensuring that we have an equal balance of power in that employment relationship. So I'm not talking about bringing in sort of 0 hours contracts or when I talk about a flexible workforce, that's not what I mean. But it's just about thinking creatively about how we can enable people to work with us under different terms and conditions that meets their needs as well as ours.
Yeah, no, and that sounds absolutely brilliant. And actually, that really closely relates to that inclusion and widening kind of participation and diversifying your workforce. Actually, it would be really interesting to hear your viewpoint on kind of trying to diversify your workforce, trying to really make sure that you get a good range of candidates, not only when it comes to kind of the interview level, but then actually progress and they feel confident that they could secure that job. What's your approach to kind of diversity and inclusion? Because I do know that MKU in particular, there is that element of consultation with industry and making sure that you get that feedback. And it's very feedback driven. So yeah, it would be marvellous to hear your point of view on that.
Yeah, very much so. So I think one of the ways that we have thought about MKU is actually to seek input from our business supporters group. We established a network, and we had some really interesting workshops last year to where we asked our business supporters to be sort of our advice and counsel, really, to help advise us on the practices that they're adopting to help promote a diverse and inclusive workplace, and to bring in ideas, from others and share those ideas, because obviously, we can't expect to be a diverse organisation without also being inclusive. So it's thinking about how we can create a culture where everybody can thrive and contribute.
Yeah, and could you actually touch on the piece of also neurodiversity, because that's something I know, again, very close to MKU's heart because of the digital curriculum and what we are trying to promote here. And I think specifically for academics, who are dealing with the digital kind of side of and technology, there is that big piece of neurodiversity and how neurodiverse people can really flourish in those types of jobs and roles.
That's right.
What is the kind of viewpoint of university in terms of really encouraging the neurodiverse candidates to apply for roles?
Yeah, so it starts again with that attraction piece that I mentioned earlier. So, and thinking about the language we use, making sure that it's very plain and clear, gender neutral language that we're using in our adverts. And really thinking very carefully about the essential criteria for a role, not writing such a long wish list that might make some people self-select out of the process because they don't feel they meet all the essential criteria. So it starts right from that point. But then during our selection practices, it's about enabling people to be able to demonstrate their skills and capabilities beyond a traditional interview, which, as we all know, is fraught with difficulties for anybody, selection panel members and candidates alike. So we like to provide an environment where people can demonstrate their capabilities, not just through an interview process.
Yeah, no, that sounds absolutely brilliant. Another question I actually wanted to ask you is, we talk about the diversity, we talk about the consultation with industry, as I mentioned. But what do you think is specifically about, university sectors are quite different to any type of industry. You attract a certain profile of a candidate there. Is there anything that we could do even kind of more, we could do more to attract? And what are the challenges really when it comes to diversifying in your opinion? Because it is really important to recognise that it is challenging, you know, with all the wants and needs that we may have, it is quite challenging to make sure that to tick all those boxes and make sure that we really, you know, as MKU and Cranfield open ourselves up and we are inclusive and diverse enough, isn't it?
Yeah, you've made some really good points there, Camilla. And I think, we should never rest on our laurels. There's always more we can do. And I think it's about being seeking feedback. So our approach should always be driven by the candidate experience or the customer experience, which is a term I think many of our business supporters would recognise. So thinking about the journey that our candidates go on and our employees, and think about how we can improve that experience, improve that journey, whether, you know, all the way through from recruitment and selection through to promotion and progression and employee well-being. And there's something to be said, I think, for co-creating the solutions there. So seeking feedback from our candidates and our employees, asking them about their experience, and then using that to continuously refine the way we do things.
Great. I know you're passionate about kind of different ways of approaching the interview stage in particular. We spoke about it previously, actually, where you kind of, you know, mentioned that it is very flawed. Kind of the standardized interview process can often really kind of put off people and make them, you know, doubt their skills and they might not fit in that role quite well. Do you know of any kind of exciting upcoming, you know, interview practices or kind of, you know, things we may want to try out going forward as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the interview process is fraught for hiring managers and candidates alike, in my experience. And, it can be nerve-wracking for people on the selection side of the table as well as the candidates, can't it? So I think one thing that we do well in higher education is having a diverse panel, first and foremost. So you're spreading the responsibility to a certain extent, you're getting diverse perspectives and insight when you're talking to the candidate, and different people to put the candidate at ease. I think that's a really important starting point, and not for selection panel members to avoid sort of evaluating people on how well they interview, but how well they're going to be able to do the job we're asking them to do. And I think, you know, there's a lot of there's a report that's been published just very recently, actually authored for the NHS in the East of England, that talks about recruitment and employee progression. It's called More Than Just a Tick Box Exercise, and there's some really interesting ideas and concepts in there that I think we'll bring into MKU.
Wow, yeah, no, that sounds absolutely great. So let's move on to kind of the I guess the challenges that come, you know, especially now with COVID and everything else that we have experienced over the last kind of 2 years. What do you think are the biggest challenges facing kind of HR at the moment and this industry, and obviously higher education in particular, but also kind of the wider spectrum? Because we do see ourselves, MKU, as a startup. We want to be kind of very driven and kind of forward thinking, but we also want to be able to address those challenges. And it would be great to hear from your perspective. What do you think that the biggest challenges are at the moment?
Yeah, there's some really big challenges out there for us, and that's what makes working in HR so interesting. And I'm sure that the people listening to this podcast will have their own views on where the biggest challenges are. But from my point of view, I think at the moment we have to be able to tell our story. We have to be able to attract people to want to come and work with us, especially if we're looking outside traditional sectors. You know, what would attract someone to come and work for MKU? What can we offer? And it might be around that flexible working model that I mentioned before. It might be about the makeup of the job role. It might be the location of the job role. Obviously, we've seen, haven't we, in the last 2 years that remote working can work. But then how do we balance that sense of inclusion where we have many people perhaps not being anchored collectively in a specific location, and that's really important for MKU in particular. We are very much centred in Milton Keynes here, so that's a challenge as well. Is attracting people, but then when if we've attracted them, how do we create that culture of inclusion and enable people to thrive that may be working remotely. So they're two of the big challenges that I see at the moment.
And what about retention? We hear all about the Great Resignation at the moment, and people really realising they might want to change jobs. And we hear that the recruitment market is going absolutely crazy at the moment. We hear from friends who are recruiters that it's a big problem at the moment. How do you see that impacting the MKU and just wider Cranfield as well?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think during COVID and the kind of early lockdowns, people just kind of sat tight. There was so much uncertainty in the world that changing jobs at that point was not something that people really wanted to embark upon. But as we've come out of the lockdowns, I think the experience of the pandemic has made people question their priorities in life, and that may include a change of career or a change of employer, but also think about the conditions of employment and working practices, and we as employers, organisations, we need to be able to respond to that and meet the needs of our candidates, and recognise that people, because they're questioning their own priorities and values, that we might need to do things differently. And again, that might be people that take flexible retirement, for example, or that have caring responsibilities, might want to work differently than a standard 9 to 5, Monday to Friday type role. And we need to be able to work with that if we're going to attract the best people to work with us.
Yes, that's very right. Can maintaining the right culture be quite difficult? That kind of positive culture in the workplace, making sure that people and colleagues are supportive of each other. And I know we had a few months back, we had kind of a series of Zoom meetings where we really were thinking about the approach we want MKU to have, and that really kind of collaborative way of working, not only with our clients and with students, but also within the team. Can that be quite a tricky thing to maintain that culture within the workplace?
Yeah, I think it's always challenging to promote the culture of an organisation, but really that's I use the word co-created already, but it's collectively we all come together and provide our own input to culture. I think ensuring that or enabling people to remain connected, and I personally feel that we've had to sort of over-engineer opportunities to do that while we've been working remotely, particularly when new people are joining an organisation who may not have those established networks or contacts or understand the kind of tacit way of doing things in an organisation, and will miss out because they don't have the kind of water cooler or informal ad hoc, coffee shop kind of conversations. So thinking about ways to foster those opportunities in a different way, either through Zoom calls, as you've mentioned, or other opportunities. Really paying attention to that, but also for existing employees, recognising the stresses and strains upon us all, and making sure that we offer well-being provision as well. And as a larger organisation, we have the luxury of being able to offer that to our colleagues, through learning and development sessions or employee well-being sessions. But I think, not all organisations will have the luxury of that kind of budget or provision. So thinking differently about how we can support people and their own mental well-being as well as physical well-being.
Yes, that's very, very important. Let's move on to the long-term vision for MKU and kind of the HR aspect of it. What are your plans kind of going forward? We know that MKU is still very much going ahead.
Yes.
We are expanding rapidly. We are having more and more students coming on board, and that also means we bring in more members of staff on board. What is your kind of view on what might happen in the next 12 months?
Yeah, this is a really exciting time for MKU. We're really building our momentum, as you've said, with welcoming new students for the first time and collaborating with organisations, which is really exciting. And certainly this is just a start, and we have ambitious plans for growth. We're proving our concept, we're piloting ideas, and we're going to use that as a basis to continue to grow. And in terms of from a HR point of view, it's extremely exciting to be here at this time. And the service that I hope to provide will be very much driven by my customers' needs, and that's our staff, our colleagues, our students. That everybody's experience needs to be congruent and be at the forefront of any HR provision. I mentioned before about the customer journey experience, and if I can understand that, then I can help refine the HR service going forward.
That's marvellous. And on that positive note, I think we came to the end of this interview. It was lovely to have you with us, Rebecca. And look out for future interviews that we've got coming up. And hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much.